What's up YouTube, and welcome to the Anabolic Outpost. In this edition, I will be showing you how to make my anabolic blueberry muffins. These muffins are great if you like a quick breakfast in the morning, or if you're like me and you want a quick dessert in the evening. Each muffin is going to come out to 160 calories with 13 grams of protein per muffin. And before we get into it, if you've been enjoying these recipes, be sure to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to the growth of my channel so I can continue churning these recipes out. For this recipe, you will need protein powder. Now, I prefer a whey casein blend. I found it works the best with these muffins. And me personally, I am using the PES Science Vanilla Protein Powder. Vanilla is the flavor that you're going to want for these muffins. Oat flour. If you don't have oat flour or you don't want to buy the expensive oat flour at the store, you could always just throw some oats in your food processor, and that is how you get oat flour. It is just a finely grinded up oat. Sucralose, or your artificial sweetener of choice. The fruit that makes this all come together, that is blueberries, unsweetened applesauce, fat-free Greek yogurt, baking soda, baking powder, egg whites, and finally, vanilla extract. Before we begin with this recipe, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees. The first step in this process is to mix all of the wet ingredients together. You are also going to separately mix all the dry ingredients together, but I'm starting out with the wet right now. First thing that's going to go in is the unsweetened applesauce. You're going to need 250 grams or 1 cup. The next thing I'm going to throw in there is 170 grams of the fat-free Greek yogurt, or 3/4 cup. Just bear with me here as I'm scraping out the last of my last Greek yogurt container. Alright, just had to cut a little ahead there so you didn't have to go through the pain of getting through the last of the Greek yogurt container, although it is very necessary to not have any food waste. Now I'm going to get those beautifully pasteurized egg whites in there. Going to throw 60 grams in there, or 1/4 cup. And now the last of the wet ingredients going in, the vanilla extract. I'm throwing in 5 grams or 1 teaspoon. And now you probably expected what's coming next, but I'm going to go ahead and mix all of the wet ingredients together. Probably should have just grabbed a whisk for this part, but wanted to dirty as few dishes as possible and save the whisk for the dry ingredients. Alright, this should sort of be the texture that you're kind of looking for. Should be kind of a white, not really a clear white. A little bit like a thicker milk, like an expired milk, if you will. And now we're going to head on over to the dry ingredients. Alright, I'm going to get this oat flour in and out of the way. This is really one of the biggest bases of the entire recipe, coming in at 240 grams or 2 cups. I was a little hesitant when making this, and I thought this would be a lot more oats than I would anticipate, especially because a lot of oat flour recipes that I've used in the past, it ends up coming out way too dry. But for this one, I don't really notice the oatiness or the dryness like I would with most recipes that call for this much oat flour. Alright, I got my PE Science protein powder going in next. This recipe isn't super overloaded with the protein powder like some other ones would be. I only got 66 grams or 2 scoops if you're going by the scoops that come in the PES Science container. But if you're using a different protein brand, this scoop might be a little bit off. So, as always, I highly recommend that you get yourself a kitchen scale so that you could have the most accurate measurements in your kitchen. I am being ever so precise with my measurement here, as there has been a lot of times where I've grabbed a full scoop of protein powder and not intended to dump the entire scoop in, and there I am digging it out, probably getting some oat flour back into the protein container. It's never really a good time. The next dry ingredient that I got going in is my sucralose. Like I say at the beginning, or really all my videos that call for artificial sweetener, it's up to you. If you're using a 1-to-1 substitute, you're going to be looking at about 1/4 cup. I only have a 1/3 cup measuring, so I am evening it out a little bit and not doing the full 1/3 cup. I haven't really found a great way to measure this through grams because it seems like every time I get a 1/3 cup, or I should say a 1/4 cup, or any measurement for that matter, it never really comes out to the right weight. If you have any tips for that, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear them. Now I am doing the risky baking powder dump, doing about 6 grams or 1.5 teaspoons. Just like the protein powder, it's always risky doing it this way just because you never know. You might just dump the entire container in there and then you got to dig it out. Now I got my baking soda. You're going to want 4 grams or half a teaspoon of baking soda. And that is it for the dry ingredients. As expected again, you're just going to want to mix these dry ingredients together. And don't be like me and make a terrible mistake like I did and put it in the smallest possible bowl where you could barely even mix it. I had quite the frustration as the powder dumped over the edges, and I eventually just bit the bullet and dumped it into the bigger bowl like I should have in the first place. And now once you got it in the big old bowl and mixed together like any experienced chef would, you're going to want to slowly put the wet ingredients in and mix with the other hand to mix together the dry ingredients and wet ingredients. It works super well if you have an electric mixer, which I do, but of course I'm stubborn and just decided to whisk it myself. It's not super important to go slow, but I've noticed that the slower you go, the less tunnels that you'll have in your muffins. You can take a quick little second here once all the liquid is in to scrape the liquids off the sides and get all of that precious muffin batter into the big old bowl. I just cut ahead a little here, but you should be able to mix it until it's smooth and it has a consistency like this. And now the fruit that brings it all together, the blueberries are going to be going in. I use a lot of blueberries for my recipe. I throw 200 grams in there. It's going to be a lot more blueberry-y than your typical blueberry muffin. This is because I like the extra volume in my muffins, and I like all the blueberry clusters that end up coming out. If you want a little bit more of a traditional blueberry muffin sort of feel, you're probably going to want to put closer to like 100 to 150 grams of blueberries. It's really all up to you on what you want, but like I said, I just like the extra volume, so I add a lot of blueberries. Once you got your 200 grams or however much you're putting in there, you're going to want to fold the blueberries in. Be careful to not be too aggressive and to be gentle with your folding, as you don't want the blueberries to burst open into the batter. Although they are going to burst open, you just want little pockets and you don't want the batter to be a consistent blueberry sort of flavor. This is kind of what the batter is going to start to look like once the blueberries are in there, in case you're curious. And now you're going to break out the muffin tin. This is going to make about 12 muffins in case you were wondering how much it makes. If you're wondering what I'm using right here, these are silicone muffin molds. It's not very commonly used and I rarely see this throughout the Anabolic kitchen community. But these are a great tool, and as you're going to see at the end of the video, it makes it for a great cleanup process as they literally just slide out of the muffin molds. And if you use like the paper cups, yeah, it doesn't get sticky, but half of your muffin is sticking to the paper cups and it's kind of a waste of food. But if you end up just spraying the tin, then it's going to be a terrible mess to clean out as there's dried up muffin all over the place. But with these silicone muffin molds, like I said, they just pop right out, as you're going to see at the end of the video if you don't believe me. And just like many areas of life, you're going to want to get down dirty with your hands if you want the proper results. And my personal favorite tip is to spray some cooking oil on those hands before you get down and dirty. And just rub those hands together, and that way when you grab the batter, it kind of just slides right off your hands. I shouldn't say slide off, it just makes it for an easier process so it's not sticking all over your hands. And it's a lot easier to just form the muffins inside of the molds. And that way you're not dealing with the trouble of having to get all the muffin batter off the side of the tin and get it back into the molds. And I don't want to waste your time, so I'm going to skip ahead here. But a very important tip, when you're putting the batter in the molds themselves, you're going to want to leave about 1/4 inch at the top. And that way, when the muffins rise, they're not going to rise all over the place and it's just going to be a sticky mess. Now I got all of my batter inside of the muffin molds. It should make 12 pretty perfectly. Sometimes I end up making a little bit 13 or 14, so I have to make up a different tin. And you're still going to get some batter on the sides of the tin, but not as bad if you're using a spatula instead of your hands. So I just wipe it off real quick with a napkin here. And now those bad boys are ready to go inside of the oven. For the muffins, I set the timer for 15 minutes. It's probably going to take a little bit longer than that, but it really depends on the oven, so 15 minutes is a great starting point. For context, I ended up adding an extra 5 minutes once it was done. If you're wondering how to tell once it's done, you're going to do the toothpick trick. If you're not familiar with that, just stick the toothpick in, and if it comes out with any batter when you stick the toothpick in, then they are not done, but if the toothpick comes out smooth, then they are done. And as you can see, I am not lying here. These silicone muffin molds, the muffins pop right out. They even hold their shape from the muffin molds, the little ridges. So it's super cool for them to pop right out, and it's super easy, and it doesn't waste any food, any of that precious protein. You don't want that going to waste whatsoever. But this is pretty much the final product. If you ended up trying this recipe out, please leave a comment down below and let me know how it worked out for you. Otherwise, if you found this helpful and you've been enjoying these recipes, please leave a like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.